Hello, hello, hello.
This is NBC, where you can see whose face is that, anyway? Join me, Sylvia Clothmeyer, for the clues to the news. You may not know what they are talking about, but you will know their name when you see their ugly mug. And if we put your guess to the test, you may win a prize, or at least talk to me on the air. Tune in every morning, after the Brandy Sisters, and impress your friends through the day when you knows the nose. That's Whose Face Is That, Anyway? Formerly, That's Those Faces, with me, Sylvia, right here on America's favorite network, NBC.
Alright, so on to the movie now. Turn on your black and white lights, and we'll see you in a little while in one of the featurettes you choose.
In all my 25 years as a reporter, I've never seen anything quite as remarkable as this. It is a magic dollhouse.
Little Molly is all alone in her dollhouse. She remembers how, a long time ago, her mother told her,
No one can hear you when you are in your dollhouse. It is a magic dollhouse.
Chapter 1, The Situation.
Henry Bergman had been one of the many young people who had created a sensational social revolution years ago when they had spontaneously walked away from the world where they had grown up in search of a new way of living. Henry had led a group of friends into the mountains where they occupied a small ghost town that had once maintained a meager existence at the junction of two highways. They renamed it The Village. Local ordinances did not discourage the redevelopment of the unincorporated area by the energetic young people. Combining their resources and their talents, some had revived a rundown gas station and tackle store, while others had set up a community garden. Fulfilling a childhood dream, Henry had set up a blacksmith operation. An abandoned small church became their town hall, and to emphasize this break from the old society, many of them changed their names. Henry Bergman became Henry Hacksaw, while his friend and advisor, Diane Chelsea, became simply Mrs Steamy. After being featured in a well-known Sunday newspaper magazine, the village became one of the more successful lifestyle ventures to come out of the youth revolt of those days. Now, after a number of years, some of the less fervent members gradually have left the village. Others, Henry and Mrs Steamy among them, are talking about further exploiting the tourists who now come to the village specifically to experience the anachronistic lifestyle for an afternoon and then leave. Hence the espresso machine. Henry has taught himself how to use the thing, and he hopes it will become a second business for him and allow him to continue his smithing business. Mrs. Steamy wants to apply for a business startup grant, as there is not enough liquid cash in the communal fund for the council to consider providing what a really good espresso stand would need in order to get started.
Chapter 2, The Signs.
It is afternoon. It is summer, and little Molly Molasses is walking towards the state beach, a mile or so away. She already is wearing her bathing suit, so as to save time and trouble at the crowded public dressing room. She is walking through the town, even though it is a long way to the beach. She likes to walk where many people will see her. Molly is 12 years old, and she is beginning to think about things. She sees Mrs. Steamy standing at the ice cream cart that is always outside the town hall these days, very near the village blacksmith. Molly wants a chocolate ice cream bar. She adjusts her course.
Hello, dear.
Says Mrs. Steamy to Molly.
I'm glad I ran into you. I wanted to tell you something.
You were standing still. I was moving, and I ran into you. You might say.
Yes, of course. You certainly are the spitting image of your mother sometimes.
I suppose so. I can't stay. I am going to swim. One chocolate bar, please.
I wanted to tell you that the Whirly girls have just arrived in town.
I don't know who that is,
says Molly, as she gives the ice cream man 10 cents.
Oh? I thought you would know all about them. They say they are a famous girl group.
Fraid not.
Says our famous girl.
Never heard of them.
Molly continues on her way while eating the ice cream bar. Before she has even arrived at the beach, she is already feeling that everything is happening backwards.
Chapter 3, The Innocents.
Molly decides she is not at all ready to go swimming on account of feeling really strangely. She has never taken any drugs, but based on what she has heard, she wonders if she is on one now. She starts back towards town, and soon she is running as fast as she can, trying to catch up with herself, who she can see running backwards some distance ahead of her.
Chapter 4, The Blah Blah Blah.
The vanilla ice cream covered with frozen chocolate sauce has caused Molly's brain to secrete a rather large amount of dopamine, which is the reason she is feeling so strangely. She returns to the cart and sees 4 young women in matching outfits talking and drinking espresso from the blacksmith as Henry Hacksaw stands staring. Molly is about to ask the ice cream man about the chocolate ice cream bar, but she is intercepted by Mrs. Steamy, who informs her.
These are the Whirly girls.
Molly is intrigued, but repeats that she has never heard of them. They explain that they are a famous girl group, which she finds curious. You see, Molly spends a lot of time with a small transistor radio against her ear, listening to the latest hits. But at the moment, she is not quite sure how much of what she is seeing and hearing is real.
Chapter 5, The Cacti of Cass.
A drug has indeed been placed in several of the ice cream bars in the vendor's cart. However, the vendor, who has always been known simply as the ice cream man, is entirely innocent, as are most of the residents of the village, as far as that goes. Not to rush the plot along, but in fact, the drug in question is derived from a sort of cactus that grows on a certain planet in the Cassiopeia constellation. It has been insinuated into the ice cream from a distance of many light years. An interesting process in itself, perhaps for another time, by the captain of the spaceship which has brought the Whirly Girls to our solar system. It is a large cruiser, and the W Girls, or rather their management, have chartered a self-flying shuttle to bring them down to Earth. Yes, the Whirly Girls are aliens. The drug was infiltrated into a number of edible items available locally so that the girls would be assured of a sufficient attendance that night. But Molly's ice cream bar is just an ice cream bar. It is only coincidence that the chocolate and sugar caught her brain by surprise that day, causing it to wet itself with a large amount of dopamine.
You see, my dear,
Mrs. Steamy is saying to little Molly,
the Whirligirls are performing a concert of their music tonight at the town hall.
Little Molly notices that the four young women seem to be watching her curiously. In fact, they are beginning to think that Molly has gotten a hold of one of the spiked ice cream bars. And Molly is uncomfortably conscious of the fact that she is acting and feeling very strangely indeed. She is having hallucinations of colorful clouds and swirling ground, which is making it difficult for her to concentrate on what Mrs. Steamy is saying.
They are all staying at the rooming house. They say they are traveling all over the place.
Molly hears this as,
There are strays in the rooming house. They are strangers from outer space.
this seems a weird thing for Mrs. Steamy to say, and Molly wonders if she too has had an ice cream bar.
Chapter 6, The Concert.
That evening, the Whirly Girls perform at the town hall. Most of the young people of the village are there, some of the older ones as well. Mrs. Steamy has stayed at home. Mr. Hacksaw is there. He doesn't care for the music, but he likes the costumes the girls are wearing. The mostly young audience loves the concert. To say the Whirly Girls are loud would be an understatement. For this reason, it is the last time the town hall is used for a rock concert.
Chapter 7, The Witness.
As the crowd is dispersing after the concert by the Whirly Girls, little Molly Molasses leaves by the side stage door in time to see the musicians walking quickly into the woods behind the hall. She follows them through the woods until they approach a clearing in the trees above which the sharp night stars shine. Molly stops at the edge of the clearing and watches as the four girls approach a round, shiny building, or what? It stands on legs above the ground, and it is about 50 feet wide. The Whirly Girls quickly climb up a ladder and disappear into the structure. Molly is still feeling very strangely, and her mind is not quite keeping up with her eyes. Suddenly, not with the sound of engines, but of music, the structure lifts off the ground and rises straight into the night air, hovering for a few moments over Molly's head. She has a feeling of panic as she wonders if this strange day, with its magic ice cream bars and its mysterious Whirly Girls and this flying thing, which looks like a mixture of barn and water tower, is going to come and go without any explanation at all? One chocolate bar, please. Take violence and hate out of your mind. She sees, looking as if none of this is apparent to them, Henry Hacksaw and Mrs. Steamy walking through the shadowy trees some distance away. After pondering all this for several minutes, Molly Molasses notices that the flying thing has disappeared without a sound. The night is again quiet, with only a sliver of moon lighting the woods. She is beginning to feel a little more like herself now, along with a strong desire to go home to her little dollhouse. As she walks through the night woods, looking often up into the starry night sky, instead of exhaustion from her long day, she is covered with a warm, fearless, giddy joy. She begins laughing and making up nonsensical variations on the words that had come from the flying machine.
Take violin lessons every Tuesday at 5. Shake vile incense out of your eyes. Take piles of date bread out for a drive. Break tie pins and shout, they are alive.
Returning to her little dollhouse, she closes the door behind her.
Did you say something?
Mrs. Steamy asks Henry.
No. I was just thinking about Molly. You know, she is becoming too grown up to be staying in that dollhouse. She is almost too tall to stand up inside it.
I know,
Says Mrs. Steamy.
but where else can she go?
Little Molly is all alone in her dollhouse. She remembers how, a long time ago, her mother told her,
No one can hear you when you are in your dollhouse. No one can hear you when you are in your dollhouse. No one can hear you when you are in your dollhouse. It is a magic dollhouse.